right, let's talk about the Fed, shall we? Well, it's happening again. President Trump is going scorched earth on the Federal Reserve and specifically on Jerome Powell, calling him always too late and wrong and saying his termination can't come fast enough. And honestly, can you blame him? The Fed has been dragging its feet while the European Central Bank has already cut rates 7 times. Meanwhile, Americans drowning in credit card debt, mortgage rates are still through the roof and they're going up again. And Jerome Powell is just like sitting there pretending that everything's fine. Now, Trump is making it clear Powell's days are numbered. The Federal Reserve isn't some neutral institution. Of course, it's a cartel of unelected bankers manipulating our economy and destroying the value of our dollar. You know, want to know why we got into the Great Depression in the 1930s? Look no further than the Federal Reserve. The cause of it, the impetus for it. And Powell has been their poster boy for years. So let's dig into this when someone who actually gets what's going on here and has been demanding the end of the Fed. Joining us now is Chris Rossini from the Ron Paul Institute to talk all about this. And by the way, check out his incredible work here called Set Money Free, What Every American Needs to Know About the Federal Reserve. And Ron Paul, of course, wrote the foreword there, and Chris joins us now. Chris, great to see you. And I know you and I are on the same page with ending the Fed, but maybe just at a high level, we can get into the pieces of why the Fed is awful for the United States of America. But what's happening here with Trump and Powell? What do you make of this back and forth?
Yes, well, you're 100% correct. Like you said earlier, it's a criminal organization, perhaps the biggest one in our country besides the military-industrial complex. But the Fed is what fuels the military-industrial complex. It should not exist, the Federal Reserve. 2 main reasons. Number one, they price fix interest rates, and nobody knows what the price of interest rates should be. It should be set by the marketplace between a lender of savings and a borrower of those savings that they want to invest. So a centralized Soviet-style board of federal governors picking what the interest rate should be should not exist. So that's number one. And number 2 is they counterfeit. And, you know, there aren't too many federal crimes in the U.S. Constitution, but counterfeiting is one of them. And the government got around, okay, we're not going to counterfeit. What we're going to do is we're going to have this private bank, so-called private bank, counterfeit money instead. And that's why we have these trillion-dollar budgets. The value of our dollar is, compare it to when I was a kid, when my parents were a kid, and they got cheeseburgers for a quarter. That's because, nothing changed with the cheeseburger. It's the value of the dollar has dropped so far that it now costs, people can't afford McDonald's anymore. So those are the 2 main reasons, why the Fed should not exist.
So President Trump says he's been way too lazy on this move to lower interest rates. Do you think, I think we've heard some rumblings that the Trump administration, or when he was candidate Trump and then President-elect Trump, that there was some discussion that they were going to end the Federal Reserve. Why do you think they haven't ended the Federal Reserve?
I don't know if they can. The Fed is, I would say, more powerful than our government. This is a banking cartel, and it's even bigger than the United States. It's a part of all the central banks around the world. So it's one thing to say that you're going to end the Fed, and another thing to do it and get everybody to go, or enough people to go along with it. I think the Fed will end itself, and this has been Ron Paul's position, because it will create a financial crisis that it will not be able to salvage. So that'll probably bring the end of the Fed, because there will be no other choice, and it won't have to deal with politics. They'll just have to go, kind of like when we stopped all the COVID stuff. That was it. It was time to stop. So that's what I think is more likely. As far as the spat with Trump and Powell, President Trump doesn't know what interest rates should be either, in the same sense that I don't, and Powell doesn't, and Ron Paul doesn't. Again, like I said, it should be set in the marketplace. Instead of one person decreeing, or certain people, that this is what the interest rate will be, and that ends up distorting the economy. When it comes to has Powell been doing the wrong things, I actually take the side that he has been right. in how he has conducted. Again, this shouldn't exist, but when inflation is roaring, and it has been, we've been suffering for many years, you want interest rates to be up and perhaps even higher to help choke off that inflation. If he lowers interest rates, people are going to look at that and be like, oh, well, let's go get more loans. And the Fed will print money, and we're going to have even worse inflation. So this is a bad cycle that we're in, but more inflation is not what I want. I'm paying enough at the supermarket. The last thing we need is interest rates to go down, artificially again, and that'll just fuel further price rises in the future.
Right. I mean, I think people forget, people have short-term memory loss, I think, because these artificially low interest rates are in large part what got us in this mess in the first place.
Yes.
And now I think you're hitting this housing crisis again. We're facing a housing crash again. I think we're on the precipice of a disaster. Is that how you read it? Are we literally sitting on the edge of an economic disaster? Have we already hit it?
The market is far too complex, and there's so many variables that I can't sit here and be, we're finished. People adapt to everything. So, but we are in terrible shape. That's for sure. Interest rates going lower, while it would feel good, take a look at the government. Take a look at the businesses, individuals. Do you think when you look at America, these people need more debt? Because that's what would happen. And that debt would have to be created by the commercial banking system, by the Federal Reserve, again, counterfeiting. So we will just have further inflation down the road. So Powell is doing the right thing. Again, this shouldn't exist, but keeping rates up, I think, is the right thing to do. Now, it hurts, but it hurts. If you drink too much, the solution isn't just get me more drinks so I don't have the hangover. The hangover is going to be worse if you drink more. So it's the same thing. We don't need more credit. What we need in this country is more savings. And that is not going to ever happen if the Fed lowers rates, artificially again.
President Trump he seems to have great reverence for Andrew Jackson, President of the United States during the 1830s, of course, and famously Andrew Jackson at the time, I think it was 1830. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he ended the second bank of the United States. It wasn't the Fed, but it might as well have been. It was a powerful institution led by a lot of private bankers, a lot of private shareholders. He thought it was corrupt. He thought it was destroying democracy, and so he ended it, and then he came back and vetoed it when they tried to recharter themselves a few years later. I guess the Fed is way more powerful than the second bank of the United States in the 1830s, but if Andrew Jackson did it, maybe President Trump could do it.
Yeah, he was heroic at that time, Jackson. And I don't think Americans know that we've had several central banks. There was the first bank, the second bank, which Jackson ended. There was a national banking system during the Civil War. And then the Fed is the one that's stuck. And it has created this massive disaster. The problem is that the scam is global. The second bank was not a global institution. The Fed is a global institution, and it affects the entire world. So ending the Fed, while, like we said, is right, it would cause a lot of chaos in the meantime. So Andrew Jackson closed down something that was local, but closing down the Fed, which will happen someday, which is unpredictable. I can't say this is A, B, C, D, how it's going to happen. But when it does, it will be a good thing for the entire world.
Well, President Trump says he wants to get rid of Jerome Powell. He needs to be terminated. But, that means that somebody else would step in then. Somebody else is going to step in and take over that role. Is there somebody that would be better than Powell that we could all, rally around? Again, these are unelected, powerful people. And we have no say in it as American citizens. We're just sort of beholden to this criminal cartel. It's really disgusting.
Yeah, we are. We are really slaves to them. It's a shame because they can control how much of our money they can debase. And we have nothing to say about it. If they want to create money for war. They'll create money, and then we'll go to the supermarket and the prices are up and your insurance is up and your everything goes up. And we had no say. It's not like we got a tax bill in the mail and we can say no. They just do it, and we are the victims. No, there is nobody better. It's like, what if you replace Marco Rubio, who is a terrible neocon, with John Bolton? Neither one is going to give you good results. So to say get rid of Powell because he's doing it wrong, doing something that nobody can or should do, then it really doesn't matter who the face is. They'll just, it'll be somebody just as bad.
Yeah, that would be my question for President Trump if we have him on the show. It's, you want Powell out of there, but the whole organization, it's like saying you want to replace, Al Capone with somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No, you got to cut down the whole system and get rid of the whole damn thing if you can. Chris, great to see you. The book is Set Money Free. Let's see if we have it here. I'll put it back up on the screen. Go grab it and read it. What every American needs to know about the Federal Reserve. This is one of those books that people should read and maybe buy a copy and put in their public library so people can read this. So people understand why we say, end the Fed and how corrupt it all is. Chris, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Clayton.